Hi, so this is the second part for our angle modulation transmission lecture. Okay, so this is just a continuation of the first video that I have sent you. Okay, so we have here the frequency deviation. Okay, so when we say frequency deviation, this is the change in frequency that occurs in the carrier when it is acted on by a modulating signal frequency. Okay, so this is also called peak frequency shift or the delta F, and it is in terms of, or the unit is in hertz. So we have here carrier swing. So carrier swing is the peak-to-peak frequency deviation, and it is simply represented by twice of your frequency deviation. Okay, so carrier swing to swing, so this is 2 multiplied by delta F. So for FM, the deviation sensitivity is often given in hertz per volts. Okay, so the frequency deviation is given by K1. So if you can still remember from our first video that K1 is the deviation sensitivity for FM, okay, then we multiply it with our VM or our magnitude for our voltage. Okay, so peak frequency deviation is simply the product of the deviation sensitivity, this product of the deviation sensitivity and the simply the product of the peak, the deviation sensitivity and the peak modulating signal voltage. So what terms do you need to remember here? So the frequency deviation and carrier swing. So sometimes they are being asked in a certain problem, but no, it is not really a problem, because if you know the frequency deviation, just multiply it by 2 and you already have the carrier swing. Okay, so thus from the equations of PM, okay, so if you're going to remember in our video, in our first video, we have discussed the equations of PM in terms of the phase deviation, in terms of the sensitivity, deviation sensitivity, and its modulation index. Okay, so from the equations of PM and the equations of FM here, so this time we're going to discuss the equations of FM. So this is the modulating coefficient or the modulating index for FM. So we have already discussed this on the last video. So this is delta F divided by the modulating signal frequency. So hertz, this is in terms of hertz. Likewise, this is also in terms of hertz. So this will just be cancelled out. Okay, so hertz and hertz will be cancelled out. So therefore, unlike in the PM, wherein our M is in terms of radians, so in FM, the modulating coefficient or the modulation index is unitless. So for the equations, okay, so likewise, we can represent your FM using the deviation sensitivity, which is K1. Okay, so we can also represent that in terms of the frequency deviation divided by our FM, wherein frequency deviation divided by the modulating frequency is our modulating index. So therefore, just like in PM, we have three ways in representing our FM. First, using our deviation sensitivity, and then using our delta F divided by FM, wherein this defined our modulating index. So all of these three equations are correct. So it just depends on what are the given in a certain problem. Okay, so from the equations of the PM that we have discussed in the last video and the equations for FM here, it can be seen that the modulation indices for FM and PM relate to the modulating signal differently. Okay, so somewhat they have different value for M. Okay, so the modulating coefficient for FM is not the same as the modulating coefficient for PM. So here we have the angle modulation summary. Okay, so for FM, comparing FM and our PM. So we have here the equation for the modulated wave. We have here their deviation sensitivity. We have their deviation. So this is frequency deviation for FM. This is phase deviation for PM. The definition of their modulation index. Okay, and then they're modulating the modulating signal also is different. So we have here sine and cosine. So because they are somewhat integral or first derivative of each other, so we have the modulating frequency, although they can have the same modulating frequency. Okay, so carrier signal, they have the same carrier signal or carrier frequency. Okay, so in this table we can see the certain differences for FM and PM, but as we mentioned during the first video, that somewhat they are really related. Okay, that's why we have a term, if you can still remember, direct FM is indirect PM, or direct PM is indirect FM. Okay, so with PM, as you can see, both the modulation index and peak phase deviation are directly proportional. Okay, so this one, so they are both directly proportional to the amplitude of the modulating signal, and as you can see, they are unaffected by the frequency. Okay, so the only thing that is affected by the frequency class is our frequency modulation. But both FM and PM, they are both affected, of course, by the amplitude of the modulating signal. Okay, so for FM, it is affected by both the amplitude and the frequency, while for PM, it is only affected by the amplitude of the modulating signal frequency. Okay. So as you can see here, this is your modulation index versus the amplitude. As we can see, this both applies to FM and PM. So both modulation index for both FM and PM are proportional to the magnitude of the modulating signal. So as we can see, okay, so in getting the modulation index for both FM and PM, we can see the variable VM there. So therefore, they are affected, and they are what? Directly proportional. Okay? So this is for frequency deviation versus modulating frequency. As we can see, your delta F, okay, so this should be frequency deviation and not M. Okay, so there's an error here, so this should be frequency deviation. Okay, so frequency deviation versus FM. So as we can see, your delta F is only related to FM. Okay, so PM, it has nothing to do with PM. Okay, so this is for frequency modulation only. And then we have phase deviation versus the amplitude. So this is good. This is for PM only. So phase deviation is, we cannot see phase deviation in frequency modulation. And as we can see, what is the relationship? So they are also directly proportional for phase modulation. So frequency deviation versus the amplitude. So this is for FM. Of course, we can relate only frequency deviation for FM, and we can see that frequency deviation for FM and VM is directly proportional. So what does that mean? If the amplitude of the modulating signal is changed, both the FM modulation index and the peak phase deviation will change proportionally. While if the frequency of the modulating signal changes, the FM modulation index changes inversely proportional. However, the phase deviation is unaffected. Okay, so the phase deviation is unaffected by any changes in the modulating signal frequency, just the modulating signal amplitude. So we have here a very simple example. Okay, so for letter A, determine the peak frequency deviation and the modulation index for an FM modulator with a deviation sensitivity K1, which is equal to 5 kilohertz per volts, and then we have a modulating signal 2 cosine 2 pi 2000 t. Okay, so how are we going to discuss this one? So we just have to get the given. So what are the given in the problem? So we are given the deviation sensitivity K1 since we are talking about FM. Okay, so since we are talking about FM, so therefore our deviation sensitivity is K1. Okay, so this is 5 kilohertz per volts, and then what do we need? We need the frequency. Okay, so where can we find the frequency? So the frequency of the modulating signal is this one, isn't it? So this is 2 pi ft. So the frequency is 2000. So therefore this is written as 2 kilohertz. Okay. Now, so what will be our formula for our delta F? So we are to solve for the frequency deviation, peak frequency deviation. So delta F is given by the formula K1 multiplied by Vm. Okay, so we have here K1. So K1 is given. This is 5 kilohertz per volts multiplied by, where is Vm? This is our peak voltage. Okay, so the amplitude is equivalent to 2. So this is 2 volts. So this will be cancelled out. Therefore, our peak frequency deviation is equivalent to 10 kilohertz. Okay, so we will be needing the peak frequency deviation in solving for your our modulation index. Okay, so what is our modulation index? Our modulation index there is equivalent to what? So this is K1 from the table earlier. So this is K1 multiplied by Vm divided by Fm, or simply, since we have already solved for this, so what is this? This is your peak frequency deviation divided by our Fm. So our peak frequency deviation is 2 kilohertz divided by our Fm, which is 2 kilohertz. So kilohertz will cancel out. Therefore, our modulation index is unitless and it is equivalent to 5. Okay, so if you can still remember in AM, our modulation coefficient is usually lesser than 1. Okay, so for FM, it is possible to have a modulation index which is greater than 1. Okay, now, so this is for letter A. Now, for letter B, it is just the same, but this time, we are to solve for the peak phase deviation. Okay, so for letter B, so what is our formula for peak phase deviation? So this is our delta theta, okay, and this is given by K multiplied by Vm. So K is the deviation sensitivity for PM, and that is given by 2.5 radians per volts, okay, multiplied by, we have our voltage, modulating signal voltage, which is given by 2 volts. So this is multiplied by 2 volts. So this will be cancelled out. So that will give us 5 radians. Okay, so as we can see, no? So as we can see here, the modulation index for frequency modulated carrier was equal to the modulation index of the phase modulated carrier. They are both equal to 5. Okay, however, this 5 here is in terms of radians, and this is in terms of modulating coefficient. Okay, so why did we compare it? Because from the previous table, we found out that the modulation index for phase modulation is likewise just equal to our peak phase deviation. Okay, so take note that their modulation index became the same. Okay, and your modulation coefficient here is unaffected by the modulating frequency, which is equivalent to 2 kilohertz. Okay, so in AM, okay, so we have discussed the percent modulation, but in AM, when for example our M is equal to 0.5, when we solve for our percent modulation, this is equivalent to 0.5 multiplied by 100%, okay, or 0.5 multiplied by 100%, so this will just give us 50%. So in FM class, this is quite different. Okay, so when we say percent modulation in FM, we do not just simply multiply our modulation index by 100%. Okay, so we have a different way of getting the percent modulation for FM. Okay, so how do we get the percent modulation for FM? So percent modulation for FM is determined in a different manner than it was with an amplitude modulated wave. So this is defined as the ratio of the frequency deviation actually produced to the maximum frequency deviation allowed by law stated in percent form. Okay, so therefore in the formula here, we have the actual. Okay, so we have the actual and we have the maximum. So where do we get the maximum? Usually, class, the maximum is being limited or being stated by, in the United States, by the FCC. Okay, so for example, in the United States, the FCC limits the frequency deviation for different type of application. Okay, so for example, we have FM broadcast band. Okay, so for example, we have the FM broadcast band. So usually, class, this is not given in the problem. So it is just assumed that you have already know the value, because the value is what we call a standard value. Okay, so for example, for FM broadcast band transmitters, the FCC provides or limits the value for the frequency deviation to be plus or minus 75 kilohertz. Okay, so plus or minus 75 kilohertz. So what is this one? So this is the standard, and we can consider that as your maximum frequency deviation. So how do we solve for the percent modulation? For example, a signal produces, okay, so a signal produces, we have computed for the actual frequency deviation of a certain application, okay, and it happens to be 50 kilohertz. Okay, so this is the actual and this is the maximum. So therefore, what we do is we just get the ratio of the actual versus the maximum frequency deviation allowed for a certain application. So this 75 kilohertz, class, is the maximum value for FM broadcasting band. So every time that we have different application, we really have to know what is the maximum allowed that was set by the FCC. So in this case, we just have to get the percent modulation. Okay, so the percent modulation is simply equivalent to 5 kilohertz divided by 75 kilohertz. So we cancel the unit, then we multiply it by 100. Okay, so if we're going to solve for that, that will give us around roughly 67%. So the percent modulation is the ratio of the frequency deviation. So do not be mistaken. Okay, so that you'll just have to multiply your modulation coefficient or modulation index by 100%. So technically, when in FM, when we say percent modulation, this is definitely not just the percentage representation of our modulation index. Okay, so that's your percent modulation. Next, we have here phase and frequency modulators and demodulators. Okay, so for phase modulator, this is a circuit in which the carrier is varied in such a way that its instantaneous phase is proportional to the modulating signal. However, so for a frequency modulator, we usually call this as a frequency deviator. So this is a circuit in which the carrier is varied in such a way that its instantaneous phase is proportional to the integral of a modulating signal. So for PM, the unmodulated carrier is a single frequency sinusoid and is commonly called the rest frequency. Okay, so for FM, therefore, with a frequency modulator, if the frequency wave Vt is differentiated prior to being applied to the modulator, the instantaneous phase deviation is proportional to the integral of V prime t. Okay, so similarly, an FM modulator is preceded by a differentiator which produces an output wave in which the phase deviation is proportional to the modulating signal and is therefore equivalent to a phase modulator. So they are just see how they are related with each other. Okay, so to give you an overview or to visualize, okay, what I am saying, we have here 4 commonly used equivalents. Okay, so this is a PM modulator. So what is a PM modulator? A PM modulator is simply a differentiator followed by an FM modulator. Okay, so we have a differentiator circuit, we have an integrator circuit that we have discussed in our op-amp application. Okay, so when we wanted to produce a PM modulator, so this is simply a differentiator followed by an FM modulator. So if we wanted to produce a PM demodulator, so this is just an FM demodulator followed by an integrator. Okay, so an FM modulator is an integrator followed by a PM modulator, and an FM demodulator is a PM demodulator followed by a differentiator. So as you can see, okay, so we can have a pure FM modulator and demodulators. Okay, then by just using a differentiator and an integrator circuit, okay, that FM modulator and that FM demodulator can already act as a phase modulator and phase demodulator circuit. So that is how they are related with each other. Okay, simply by an addition of differentiator and integrator circuit, a PM modulator and demodulator can act or function as an FM modulator and an FM demodulator. So in terms of figures, okay, so we can have this one. So PM modulator, okay, then we have a PM waveform, then we have PM demodulator. So as we can see, we use the sensitivity value K here. Okay, so with PM modulator and demodulator, by proper positioning of differentiator and integrator circuit, we can create we can create an FM or an FM waveform. Okay, so this is a frequency and phase modulation and demodulation. So we have here the frequency analysis of angle modulated waves. So angle modulation, in angle modulation, frequency components of the modulated wave are much complexly related to the frequency components of a modulating signal than with AM. Okay, so the spectrum, the frequency spectrum of angle modulation is much complicated with the frequency spectrum of an AM signal. Okay, both FM and PM, which uses single frequency modulating signal, produces an infinite number of pairs of side frequencies and thus has an infinite bandwidth. Because for AM, and we have single frequency modulating signal, we only produce one pair of sidebands, just the lower and the upper sideband. But it is a different story for angle modulation, because a single frequency modulating signal for FM and PM is already produces an infinite number of pairs of side frequencies. Okay, so each side frequency is displaced from the carrier by an integral multiple of the modulating signal frequency. However, most of the side frequencies are negligibly small in amplitude and can be ignored when using a variety of criteria. Of course, it is infinite, but the infinite term is just for an ideal scenario. So when your amplitude is already very, very small, so there are numbers of pairs that can already be neglected or they're already negligible, but there are still number of sides of frequencies that are included. Okay, so we have to discuss what are those criteria so that we can decide whether the side frequency is to be neglected or it has to be included in the bandwidth. So we have here the frequency analysis of an angle modulated wave with a single frequency sinusoid produce the frequency analysis of an angle modulated wave with a single frequency sinusoid produces a peak phase deviation of m radians, where m is the modulation index. Okay, so the individual frequency components that make up the modulated wave are not that obvious. So this case, we will be using a Bessel function. Okay, so we have a term here. Bessel function identifies, okay, the available side frequencies that can be applied directly. So we have here, by modulating a single frequency signal, okay, so we have the Bessel function's identity, wherein Jn is the Bessel function of the first kind of the nth order with an argument m. Okay, so the equation shows that a single frequency modulating signals produces an infinite number. Okay, so we have here plus, just like what we did in amplitude modulation. However, since that is both sides, so we just had the lower and the upper side frequency. So in this case, we have the MT here. MT is the angle modulated wave. Then we have M, that is the modulation index. We have already discussed the modulation index previously. So we have VC here, that is the peak amplitude of the unmodulated carrier. JO, that is the carrier component, okay? J1M, so J1M is your J1M is our first set of side frequencies. J2, second set, J3, and so on. Okay, so this equation shows that a single frequency modulating signal can produce an infinite number of sets of side frequencies, each displaced from the carrier by an integral multiples of the modulating signal. A sideband set includes an upper and lower frequency. Okay, so the successive sets of sidebands are called first order sidebands, second order sidebands, and so on. And their magnitudes are determined by the coefficients J1, J2, and so on. Okay? So we have here for the amplitude, so it is for the amplitude of the sine frequency, so it was derived using the factorial, okay, wherein n or J are the number of side frequencies produced, and M is equivalent to the modulation index. So this might be so scary, no? So this might look so scary, but however, it was already derived, okay? So it was already derived and was put on a table. Okay, so okay, I think I have skipped this part. Okay, so this is the Bessel function, and the M, the modulation index that we're talking about earlier, comes from this one. Okay, so this one. So these are the values of M. M could be equal to 1. M could be equal to 0. M could be lesser than 1. Okay, so we have here the first null set is 2.4. The second null set is 5.45. Okay, and so on. So this will be the number of side frequency pairs depending. So actually, class, this is infinite. Okay, so this is infinite. However, we stop at a certain value. Okay, so those values are said to be significant. The other values are negligible and can be therefore neglected. Okay, so we can use this, we will be using this Bessel function table. We will be using these Bessel functions for our problem earlier. Okay, so the values of Jn are relative to the amplitude of the unmodulated carrier. Okay, so this one, we will be using usually this table. So this table is can be given, or you're allowed to use the table, because this will be you will be needing this to find out how many significant pairs of sidebands you will have. Okay, we have here, for example, so if your modulation coefficient is equal to 0, so there is no modulation happened, therefore there are no side frequencies. So when your M is lesser than 1, so the amplitude of the higher order side frequency rapidly becomes insignificant. When your M is greater than 1, so this is already possible. So for AM, it is usually always lesser than 1. So for FM and PM, it is possible. So the amplitude starts to decrease rapidly as soon as your N is equal to M. Okay, so when your M is greater than 0, so that the magnitude of the carrier component JOM decreases. So these are the special points to remember. So when M is equal to 2.4, this is what we call the first carrier null. M is equal to 5.4, second carrier null. Okay. And then the significance is 0.01, at least 10%, at least 1% of the rest carrier. Okay, so where are we going to look for this? No, so where are we going to discuss for it? Okay, now so let's have this problem using the Bessel table function. For an FM modulator, we have to determine the number of sets of significant side frequencies. So to determine the number of sets of significant side frequencies, we need to solve for our modulation index. So what is modulation index for FM? Our modulation index for FM class is equivalent to so it is given. Okay, so it is given. So it says there 1. So when you look at the table, okay, so if you're going back to the table, it says there that for a modulation coefficient of 1 from the table, you have 1 reduced carrier component and 3 sets of significant side frequencies. Okay, so we are to determine the number of sets of significant side frequencies. So it says there we have 1, okay, we have 1 carrier and we have 3, J1, J2, and J3. So where did this came from? This came from the Bessel table. So just search for 1, and when you look at the table, you will be finding JO, J1, J2, and J3. So those values also gives the amplitude. Okay, so for example, JO there is 0.77 VC. Okay, so J1 there is 4.44 VC. Then J2 is 1.1 VC. And lastly, J3 is 0.02 VC. So that means there is still J4, J5, J6. However, they are already negligible because their amplitude is very, very small already, or less than 1% of our carrier frequency. Okay, so if we're going to solve for this will give us 7.7 volts. This is 4.4 volts. So this is 1.1 volts, and this is 0.2 volts. Okay, so how are we going to draw the frequency spectrum? Just like what we're doing in AM. Okay, so in AM, we draw your JO here. Okay, so this is 7.7. Then we draw your J1 here. So this is 4.4. Then we draw your 1.1 here. And then lastly, we have 0.2 here. Okay, so these are the side frequencies produced. So in AM, if we have a single modulating signal, we only have one pair, or we only have two sidebands. So it's a different story for FM. Okay, now how do we determine the frequencies? So the frequencies is just like the same, it's just the same as what we do in AM. Okay, so we start with the carrier. So what is the frequency of the carrier? So it says here, this is 500 kilohertz. So we have here 500 kilohertz, and then the upper side frequency here is just 500 kilohertz plus our modulating signal frequency, which is 1 kilohertz. So this will give us 501, 502, and 503 kilohertz. Likewise, this is FC minus FM. So this will give us 499. So this is 498, and this is 497. So this is the spectrum for our FM with a modulating coefficient equivalent to 0.1. Okay? Okay, now, so we have here from the preceding discussion, it can be seen that the bandwidth of an angle modulated wave is a function of the modulating signal frequency and the modulation index. Okay, so with angle modulation, multiple sets of sidebands are produced, and consequently, the bandwidth can be significantly wider than that of an AM wave with the same modulating signal. Okay, so in this next one, so what if we do not want to use the Bessel function? Can we approximate? Okay, can we approximate? So we have here the bandwidth requirements for angle modulated waves. So according to J.R. Carson in 1922, it was he mathematically proved that for a given modulating signal frequency, a frequency modulated wave cannot be accommodated in a narrower bandwidth than an amplitude modulated wave. Okay, so an angle modulated wave is a function of the modulating signal frequency and the modulation index. Okay, so an angle modulated waveform, we have here an angle modulated waveforms classifications. So for low index cases, so what do we consider low index case? So these are wherein the modulation index is less than 1. Okay, so we term this as a narrow band FM. Then we have the medium index cases wherein the modulation index is greater than 1 but is less than 10. So we call those as medium index case, and high index case occurs when the modulation occurs when the modulation index is greater than 10. So we also call this as the quasi-stationary approach. Okay, so for FM, for PM, the modulation index is equivalent or equal to the peak phase deviation. Okay, so from the Bessel function table, so it can be seen that with low index angle modulation, most of the signal information is carried by the first set of sidebands, and the minimum bandwidth is twice your modulating the frequency of the modulating signal. Okay, so for low indices, okay, so for low index modulation, bandwidth is 2 times FM. For high index, it is bandwidth is equal to 2 times the frequency deviation. The actual bandwidth is equivalent to 2 multiplied by n times FM, wherein n is the number of significant sidebands that can be seen in our Bessel table. Then we have FM, that is our modulating signal frequency. Okay, so according to Carson's rule, okay, so Carson established a general rule to estimate the bandwidth for all angle modulated systems regardless of the modulation index. So Carson's rule approximates the minimum bandwidth of an angle modulated wave is twice. So ang approximation is it is twice the sum of the peak frequency deviation and the highest modulating signal frequency. Okay, so according to the Carson's rule, so it is an approximation and it gives bandwidth that are slightly narrower than the bandwidth that we're going to use or that we're going to produce if we make use of the Bessel function. Okay, so your Carson rules defines a bandwidth that includes approximately 98% of the total power in the modulated wave. So the actual bandwidth is necessary. So the actual bandwidth necessary is a function of the modulating signal waveform and the quality of the transmission being desired. So according to the Carson's rule, that was set August 28, 1939, the bandwidth is likewise equivalent to the twice the sum of the modulating frequency and the peak frequency deviation. Okay, so as you can see here, we do not see we cannot see any relationship with the Bessel function. Okay, so we consider FM is much greater than for low modulation indices, while peak frequency deviation is much greater than if we're going to consider high modulation indices. So let's take this for example. Okay, so let's take this as an example. We have for an FM modulator with a peak frequency deviation delta F is equal to 10 kilohertz and a modulating signal frequency of 10 kilohertz and a 500 kilohertz carrier. Determine the actual minimum bandwidth from the Bessel function table. So from the Bessel function table, we need to solve for M. So if we're going to solve using the if we're going to set the bandwidth using the Bessel function, we need to establish our M. So in the previous problem, M was already given. So in this problem, we do not know yet the value of M, but we can solve for M. M is equivalent to the frequency deviation divided by the modulating signal frequency. So in this case, this is 10 kilohertz divided by 10 kilohertz. It will be cancelled. So this is equivalent to 1. So from our previous example, we already know how many sidebands will be produced when the modulating signal is equivalent to 1. Okay, so if that is equal to 1, therefore, we have JO. So if you still remember a while ago, so this is 0.77 of your VC. So we have J1, which is 0.44 of our VC. So we have J2, which is 0.11 of VC, and J3, which is 0.02 of VC. Okay, so actually, what we need here is our N. So what is our N here? We have 3 there. Okay, so we have 3. So why 3? Because there are 3 sidebands produced when our modulating signal is equivalent to 1. So therefore, what is the actual minimum bandwidth? So for letter A, what is the actual minimum bandwidth? So from our formula a while ago, so this is 2 multiplied by N multiplied by FM. So this is given by 2. So what is our N? So this is 3 because there are 3 sidebands. So this is 3 times 10 kilohertz. So this will give us a bandwidth which is equivalent to 60 kilohertz. Okay, now we are going to determine the approximate minimum bandwidth using the Carson's rule. So using the Carson's rule, what is our approximation? So this is the bandwidth is equivalent to 2 multiplied by FM plus peak frequency deviation. So our bandwidth according to Carson's is 2 multiplied by 10K plus 10K. So this will give us 40 kilohertz. As we can see, they are not the same. Okay, so they are not the same. Actually, we can plot the spectrum. So how can we plot the spectrum? So just like what we did earlier, so we have here your 7, this is your 7.7, let us say, the value is not given, the peak value is not given. So let us just say 0.77 of VC. And then we have here 0.44 of VC. Then we have 0.11 of VC. And we have 0.02 of VC. So our carrier is 500 kilohertz. Okay, so our modulating signal is 10 kilohertz, so plus 10. So this is 510. So this is 520. This is 530. So this is 490. This is 480. And this is 470. So if we're going to get the bandwidth using the Bessel function, that will give us 60 kilohertz, just like what we have solved here. Okay. However, according to the Carson's approximate value, okay, approximation, it is just 40 kilohertz. So this is your 40 kilohertz. So what is the difference? That means there are already a portion of your information that will not be included in the transmission of our FM signal. Okay, so because we have already cut the bandwidth to 40 kilohertz, that means some of the original information will not be transmitted already. Okay, and what will be the effect? So if that is the effect, the narrower bandwidth, so technically 40 kilohertz is a narrower bandwidth, the narrower bandwidth will technically make your performance poor. Okay, kasi there are some of the information that will be taken off already. Okay, so however, this Carson's approximation is more significantly can be used if we are talking about modulation indices which is greater than 5. But if it is less than 5, I think the answer will be very, very far. Okay, so that is how we use the formula. Okay, then we have another term here. So what is our another term? So we have here a deviation ratio. So the deviation ratio is the worst case modulation index and is equal to the maximum peak frequency deviation divided by the maximum modulating signal frequency. So why do we call this the worst case modulation index? Because when we have deviation ratio, this produces the widest output frequency spectrum. So what do we mean by widest frequency spectrum? That means this has the biggest bandwidth requirement. Okay? So the formula is the deviation ratio is equivalent to maximum. So deviation ratio is unitless. These are both frequency, both hertz, so it will just be cancelled out. So that is the maximum peak frequency deviation and the maximum modulating frequency in hertz. So a while ago, we have already discussed how do we get the maximum frequency deviation. So technically, this is being limited by the FCC in the United States. Okay, so for a given system, the minimum bandwidth is greatest when the maximum deviation is obtained by the maximum modulating signal frequency. Okay, so highest modulating frequency occurs with the maximum amplitude allowed. So for FCC, for TV, this time for TV broadcasting, so a while ago we have discussed the FM broadcasting standard. So this time, the FCC for TV broadcasting deviation, okay, broadcasting, TV broadcasting has, so for TV broadcasting, so this is 50 kilohertz deviation frequency, okay, and 15 kilohertz maximum FM, for example. Okay, so if we're going to solve for the deviation ratio for that, that will give us 50 divided by 15, that will give us approximately 3.33. So this is what we're going to make use. Okay, so this is what we're going to look for in the Bessel function table, and we will be using that as your M, no? So, but that doesn't mean that whenever a modulation signal of 3.33 occurs, it is already considered the one which has the widest bandwidth. Okay, so not all indices. So the widest bandwidth also occurs at the same time, no? So it means that whenever a modulation index of 3.3 occurs for a maximum modulating signal frequency only. But if you solve for 3.3 but you are not using the maximum modulating signal, therefore it is not considered as deviation ratio. Okay, so not all 3.3 M is considered to be deviation ratio. It is only deviation ratio if, okay, you use the maximum value. The 50 kilohertz here for TV is a standard value. So if you will be solving a problem and it says there TV broadcasting, so for TV broadcasting, the maximum peak frequency deviation is given to be 50 kilohertz. So the 75 kilohertz a while ago is for FM broadcasting. Okay? So here are some of the values. So for commercial broadcast band FM, set by the FCC, so 20 megahertz band of frequency, this is 88 megahertz to 108 megahertz, divided into 100, okay, with 200 kilohertz wide channels. So as we mentioned a while ago, the Fmax, the frequency deviation maximum for FM commercial broadcast station is 75 kilohertz to provide high quality, reliable music, okay, with a maximum frequency, modulating frequency of 15 kilohertz, okay. So if we use that, if we use those maximum value, we can solve for DR, which is equivalent to 75 kilohertz divided by 15 kilohertz, and that will give you 5. Okay? So this time, your 5 is your maximum bandwidth. And when we look at the Bessel function for m is equal to 5, that will give us 8 sidebands. Okay, so if we're going to make use of the formula for the bandwidth, okay, so for the bandwidth, so that means we have 2 multiplied by n multiplied by fm. Okay, so 2. So according to Bessel function, if we have 5 as your m, you will be having 8 sidebands. So therefore, our n here is equal to 8 multiplied by our modulating frequency, which is 15 hertz. Okay, so 8 times 15 k multiplied by 2, this will give us 240 kilohertz. 240 kilohertz already exceeded the allowable 200 kilohertz wide channel for FM. So what do we mean by that? Okay, so what do we mean by that? This is actually not a problem because FCC has historically assigned only every other channel in a given geographic area. So it is not actually after a certain channel, you already have another FM channel station. Usually they give for example, this is your first station. So usually this is vacant, and then we have the second station, and this is vacant, and so on. So therefore, even though you exceeded a few, okay, still you cannot spill over to the next station. So in case you have a spillover, we call that adjacent channel interference. Okay, so what do we mean by adjacent channel interference? This is the highest side frequency from one channel are allowed to spill over into adjacent channel, because usually the adjacent channel is not operating. Okay, so this is not a commercial station like that. So we have here a phasor representation of the angle modulated wave. So this is for low modulation index. So the phasor diagram for a low index angle modulated wave with a single modulating signal. So for this special case wherein m is less than 1, only the first set of sideband pairs is considered, and the phasor diagram is very similar to that of an AM wave, okay, because they only have low sideband and upper sideband, okay, except for a phase reversal of one of the side frequencies. So the resultant vector has an amplitude that is close to unity at all times. So therefore, that's the difference from AM, because in AM, the amplitude is not equal, okay. So for high modulation index, the resultant vector is the sum of the carrier component and the significant side frequencies, okay, with their magnitudes adjusted according to the Bessel table. Each side frequency is shifted an additional 90 degrees from the preceding one. The locus of the resultant 5-component approximation is curved and closely follows the signal locus. So one of the most important differences between angle modulation and AM is the distribution of power in the modulated wave. Okay, so unlike AM, the total power in an angle modulated wave is equal to the power of the unmodulated carrier. The sidebands do not add power to the composite modulated signal. Okay, so when we say average power, this is independent of the modulating signal, the modulation index, and the frequency deviation. Okay, so However, it is equal to the average power of the unmodulated carrier regardless of the depth of modulation. Unlike for AM, it is really a big deal what the value for your modulation index is to get the power for the sidebands. Okay? So the total instantaneous power in an angle modulated carrier, the average of the second term is usually equal to 0. So the total transmitted power is just equivalent to Vc squared all over 2R. And of course, this is given in terms of watts. Okay? So the total power, PT, that is your total power, and PO is the modulated carrier power. Okay? So add notes. So we have here power in the first sets, power in the second sets, and so on. So when thermal noise with a constant spectral density is added to the FM signal, it produces an unwanted deviation of the carrier frequency. So this depends on the relative amplitude of the noise with respect to the carrier. Okay, so when it is modulated, when this is demodulated, it becomes noise. So we have here the FM noise triangle. The demodulated noise voltage is inherently higher for the high modulating signal frequencies. Okay, so with FM, noise at a higher modulating frequencies is inherently greater in amplitude than noise at the lower frequencies. Okay, so this includes both single frequency interference and random noises. So phase modulation due to an interfering signal. So Vn here, noise voltage is separated from carrier voltage by Fn before limiting. Okay, so for letter B, A at a spectrum, and letter C shows the effect of limiting the amplitude of a composite FM signal. The instantaneous frequency deviation is the first time derivative of the instantaneous phase deviation. Okay, anyway, so this is for the signal to noise ratio. Okay, so signal to noise ratio is just the frequency deviation divided by frequency deviation due to the signal divided by the frequency deviation due to the noise. Okay, so we have here advantages of angle modulation compared with amplitude modulation. So FM has the ability to suppress noise, which is probably the biggest advantage of FM compared to AM. Okay, so for FM receivers can be fitted with amplitude limiters to remove amplitude variations caused by noise, making FM more immune to noise. This is called FM thresholding. Okay, so in AM, once the signal has been contaminated by noise, noise could not be removed. So in FM, we have what we call pre-emphasis and de-emphasis. Okay, so to compensate for the non-uniform distribution in FM, pre-emphasis, which is emphasizing or boosting of amplitude of high frequency modulating signal, is done at the transmitter. So this is done to improve the signal to noise ratio. So pre-emphasis class is just like a high pass filter, okay, because it emphasizes or boosts the amplitude of high frequency modulating signal. So to compensate for pre-emphasis done at the transmitter, we have de-emphasis. Okay, so what is the counterpart of pre-emphasis? So de-emphasis. So if pre-emphasis is a high-pass filter, de-emphasis is a low-pass filter, which is attenuating or de-emphasizing high-frequency signals after demodulation. Okay, and this is done at the FM receiver. Okay, so this reduces noise, which improves the system fidelity. So this is the secret for why FM has the best noise, so it is best in the ability to suppress noise compared to AM. It has a pre-emphasis at the transmitter and then de-emphasis at the receiver. So angle modulated signals are more efficient. Okay, so amplitude of FM and PM wave remains constant. Amplitude is independent of modulation depth. Low-level modulation may be used, but all subsequent amplifiers can be Class C and therefore more power efficient. So all transmitted power in FM are useful, making it more efficient. Unlike for AM, the carrier power has no information. Okay, so it is just considered to be as a loss. So with FM and PM, a phenomenon known as capture effect. So what is the capture effect? This allows the receiver to differentiate between two signals having the same frequency. Okay, so we call that ghost frequency. So FM and PM has a capture effect. So therefore, the receiver has a capability of differentiating between two signals having the same frequency. So there are disadvantages, so higher bandwidth. So we have seen how high your bandwidth for FM is based on our discussion a while ago using the bezel function. Okay, so it is needed up to 10 times as large as is needed for AM. Okay, so for AM we only have a bandwidth of 10 kilohertz. So for FM it has a maximum value of 200 kilohertz. Okay, so and more complex circuits in the transmitter receiver. Okay, so I guess this is the last slide. Okay, so there are still few lessons left, and I think you can have some advanced readings because those are the circuits used in angle modulation. Okay, thank you.